This wasn't supposed to be my story. I opened my eyes inside a story I knew far too well, a world where the villain was destined to fall, and anyone standing too close would be dragged down with him. Unfortunately, I wasn't just close. I was his cousin. Not the heroine. Not the hidden genius who changes the plot. Just a minor side character fated to disappear the moment the villain's downfall begins. In the original story, my future was simple, useful until I wasn't, then erased without mercy. But I remember everything. The betrayals, the turning points, the exact moment when the villain crosses the line he can never return from. If I stay the same, I die with him. If I try to oppose him, I die even faster. So there's only one choice left. I will survive, even if it means standing beside the villain, guiding him, restraining him, or rewriting his fate before the story reaches its tragic end. Because this time, I'm not just the villain's cousin. I'm the one who knows how the story ends. She closes her eyes and thanks Teacher. Teacher. I saved all of them. This should be enough. I was happy for a bit as a kindergarten teacher, but it looks like my life ends here. Who, she said. W8UI Lee Se-in was a kindergarten teacher. After losing consciousness in a bus accident, I found myself in the romance fantasy novel I used to read, Cinderella Who Doesn't Wear Glass Shoes, a #1 romance fantasy bestseller. The main plot is about the protagonist who can see spirits marked by a pink hue and her life in the magical academy. In addition to the crown prince, who ends up with the female protagonist, there is Ariel, the villain, Grundwon, the commander of the knights, and Sirius, the cursed second prince. As the crown prince and the female protagonist head to their happy ending, all the supporting male characters meet a tragic fate in an extreme plot twist. Hey, Sernia. So, am I the main character of this novel? She said. Sernia, are you there? I'm just a minor character. I'm the late Duke's daughter who only shows up briefly in a side story, Sernia said. I'm sorry, I was lost in thought for a while. Sernia Ardentine, 7 years old. Women said, Sernia, please read me a love story. Another girl said no. She's going to read me a hero story, Sernia said. After the late Duke and his wife died in an accident, his younger brother, the current Duke, inherited the house and took me in as I had become an orphan. These two are my younger cousins, Ariel and Ariel. Ariel Ardentine, 5 years old. Ariel Ardentine, 5 years old. Both said, what do you think? Sernia thinks, even if they look angelic now, these two will become the greatest villains in this story. Ariel said, I'm just so happy to be with you guys. Both Ariel and Ariel said, really? Sernia thinks, and I'm the one who makes these two villains. In the original story, I've never loved anyone like you. Sernia is jealous of the twins. There is no one who will love you wholeheartedly in this world, and kills the nanny. Ever. She ends her own life, cursing the two. Sernia thinks, I will not let it end like in the original, never. Ariel said, Sernia. She replied, why yes. Ariel said, please read this romance novel. Sernia said, let's see. The grown-ups' affairs? Let's read this book when we're older. Ariel said, oh. Sernia replied, haha, got it. I'll do as Sernia says. Sernia said, why yes. Thanks, Ariel said. Instead, give me a kiss please. Sernia said, what? Ariel said, that's not fair. Me too, I want one too. Sernia thinks, I was told not to spoil them, but this is our little secret, okay? How can anyone not adore these cuties? Ariel said yes. It's our secret. Ariel's secret. She thinks that's right, children need to be loved. I will protect these children from becoming villains. I'll protect my own life as well. Man said I can hear the noise all the way outside the door. Nermes Ardentine Due Ardentine Duke said you must behave according to the family's standards. Sernia said, are you okay? I'm sorry. You guys got scolded for no reason. Ariel said, does father hate us? Sernia said, no, the Duke doesn't hate you. Ariel said, right. Father doesn't hate us. Sernia said, Ariel. Ariel said, why yes, I'm okay. Sernia said, all right. I'll go and have a talk with your father. Ariel said, why? Sernia said, that's because I love you guys. Even though I love the twins, they also need the love of their parents. I'll do whatever is necessary to stop the twins from becoming villains and save myself. Man said, young miss, did you come to see the Duke? Sernia thinks, what should I do? Now that I'm here, I'm getting nervous. Man said, Isia young. Sernia said, yes. Dane, can I see the Duke right now? There's something I wish to discuss with the Duke. Man said, I understand. Sernia thinks this is the first time I'll be meeting the Duke since entering this mansion. What should I do if he refuses to meet me? Man said, young miss, I'll take you to the office. She thinks the scratching sound of the pen is relaxing. With the Ardentine's signature hair and eye color, the original story portrays the twins' father as cold as ice. That's Duke Ardentine. Duke said, I heard you have something to discuss with me. Sernia said, yes. She thinks, yes. Right now, I'm 7 years old. A little nonsense should be forgiven, right? Surely, they wouldn't kick out a young child. Sernia said, Duke, Ariel and Ariel are only 5 years old. They're at an age where they really need their parents' love. I understand you're busy, but it would be nice if you could be with the children sometimes. Duke said, with the children? She thinks, for example, tea time would be nice. Telling the Duke to show them love right away won't work. It would be better if they just spent more time together. Why does he look like that? Sernia said, AI really being kicked out? Duke said, did the twins make you do this? Did they ask to be loved? Sernia said, no, this is what I think. Duke said, they are the children who will take over Ardentine in the future. I can't pamper them. Sernia said, Duke, you are correct. The members of the Ardentine family need to be strong. However, if you raise the heirs too strictly by focusing only on punishment, they won't grow up properly. She said, just want to live too. Duke said, you're saying exactly what Roan said. Writer said, Roan. It's the name of Sernia's deceased mother. Sernia thinks if mother had said the same thing, that means I have to push a little harder. Sernia said it's not just about sweet words. Once a month, during tea time, the Duke can check the children's progress, praising or giving them advice. This will be a chance for the twins to grow quickly. Duke said, what's the benefit for you if I do that? Sernia thinks benefit? She said, the fact that they'll grow up properly? Duke said, will you be okay? Sernia said, about what? Duke said, I understand. I'll let Dane know. In that case, I'll take my leave. Sernia thinks the fact that they'll grow up properly? Sernia said, you sound just like Roan. Guys. Ariel. Tuesday, Duke. She said it's because of you. Ariel said it's because you were sobbing. Ariel said it's because of you. Sernia said, why are you fighting again? Why? Both Ariel and Ariel said Sernia. Ariel hugged and said, Sernia, I was wrong. Ariel said, please don't go, Sernia. Sernia said, what are you talking about? I am fine. Ariel cried and said, even if I'm not loved by my father. As long as I have you, I'm fine. Sernia said, where could I go? I'll always be by your side. Were you afraid I'd be kicked out by the Duke? Don't worry. Everything's fine. Besides, the Duke isn't as heartless as you think. Ariel said, father? Ariel said, cold-hearted? Sernia said, well, maybe a little. He's a little bit of that too. But from now on, you'll get to, she thinks, spend time together once a month. She said, we will get to spend time with father once a month? What should we play tomorrow? She thinks, one step up. I took a single step towards escaping the death that occurs in the original story. Is this a dream? That is the last person I met as Lee Soyeon. There are so many things I want to ask. My voice won't come out. Wait a minute. Hold on. Who are you? In the original story, Sernia was supposed to curse the twins and die at the age of 10. Sernia thinks there is no one in this world who will truly love you. But I am still alive, even now at 16 years old. During this time, the relationship between the twins and the Duke has improved, and the atmosphere in the house of Duke Ardentine has changed for the better. There's not much time left. In a year, the Crown Prince's birthday banquet will take place. She opens the book and thinks a few years later, the original story will begin in full swing. Notes on the events of the original story. As soon as I could write, the very first thing I made was my own summary of the original story. It needs to be checked once more. Cinderella Doesn't Wear Glass Slippers was a twisted romance story involving 2 protagonists, 1 villainess, and 3 secondary male leads. At the Crown Prince's 15th birthday banquet, Ariel falls in love with the Crown Prince at first sight. But the crown prince falls in love with the heroine, Daisy. Consumed by jealousy, Ariel curses Daisy at the cost of her own life. However, thwarting Ariel's ploy, Daisy breaks the curse and survives, because Sirius, one of the secondary male leads, sacrifices his life to lift Daisy's curse. Even after 2 people died, the tragedy in the novel did not end. After that, Ariel started to put in even more effort to make Daisy's life a pain. At the climax of the novel, Ariel starts a rebellion to take Daisy away. The 3rd secondary male lead, Glendwyn, dies protecting Daisy in the burning palace. The rebellion ends in failure, and Ariel is killed by Crown Prince Helios. Thus, Helios and Daisy achieve their happy ending, a happy ending where no one but the main characters survived. Serenia said these days, the relationship between the Duke and the twins has improved, so I should be able to avoid the villainous route. I'm glad I can survive, but it's becoming hard to predict how the story will progress. Will this be enough? I feel a bit uneasy. It must be because the start of the original story is approaching. Today is the monthly tea time with the Duke. This event, which I proposed 9 years ago, Ariel and Trial Ardentine, 14 years old, has continued without fail until now. Duke said, Ariel, I heard you've already finished learning Charter. Ariel smiles and said, yes, it's the language of the kingdom right next to the magic tower. Next, I'd like to learn the language of Rihen, if possible. Ariel thinks Rihen is older sister's mother's homeland. Duke said, all right. Ariel. He replied, yes. Duke said, it says here that you broke a porcelain vase while running in the hallway. Be mindful of your behavior. Ariel said, yes. Duke said, still, reaching the rank of asterisk sword expert shows your hard work. To befit the Ardentine name, you must reach the pinnacle with your sword. Ariel said, yes. HMS WH warehouse maid said, time to tidy up Lady Cernia's bed huh? Ack. Screams. Duke said, what's with the commotion? Maid said, apologies for interrupting your tea time. But there is a matter that requires your immediate attention. Duke said, understood. I'll go myself. Cernia said, if it concerns me, I'll come along. Duke replied, do as you wish. Duke and Cernia go away, and she thinks this is my room. A cursed doll. This is definitely the event of one of the side stories. The only episode in Shin where Cernia appears. When the twins were about 10 years old, Cernia found a cursed doll in Nanny Burns' room. Cernia accused the nanny of cursing the twins and had her executed on the spot. Despite culprit apparently having been revealed, the Duke continued investigating the case's mastermind. While investigating the nanny's room, Duke clenches her hand. She said, it's not true. It's not me. Cernia shouts, Ariel. Say something. Cernia smiling and said, ah, haha. However, the cursed doll incident occurred when the twins were around 10 years old. Why is it resurfacing now? Duke said, what happened? One maid said, well, I came in to clean, and when I looked at the bed, another said after finding it, she reported it to me, and I immediately went to inform the Duke. Cernia thinks, what is he doing? Duke's servant said, Your Grace. Duke said, I tried infusing magic into it. It's not a curse. Servant said, not a curse? Duke said, what is this? This hair color. Duke said, could it be yours? Cernia said, yes. That earring is also the one I lost before. This time, the cursed doll wasn't found in the nanny's room but in my room. Yet the contents inside remain the same. My hair strands and my lost pearl earrings. And while Cernia was jealous of the twins, she wasn't the one behind the curse. A narrative trick? 2 critical pieces of information were deliberately hidden. The novel provided intentionally biased information. The author wanted to deceive the readers. Cernia thinking again, what kind of romance fantasy novel uses a narrative trick? Are you kidding me? Duke said, do you have any guesses? Cernia thinks the culprit is the nanny. I want to say that, but we still lack evidence. Cernia replied, I don't know. Duke said, if you don't know, that's fine. Stay with the twins. I'll definitely catch the culprit. Dane, gather everyone in the Duke's household. From the coachman to the knights, everyone. Maid said, my lady, his grace will definitely find the culprit. Cernia smiles and said, yes, Chelsea. I'm fine. Don't worry. Maid name Chelsea. Sernia thinks the nanny must have entered my room. There must have been time to place the curse doll. The last time I saw the nanny was during lunch when she was with Ariel in the dining hall. The tea time with the Duke was at 3 o'clock. The incident happened shortly after the tea time began. So, the interval in question is between 1 p.m. and 3:10 p.m. At that time, was that when the curse doll was placed? Sernia sees the blood and thinks, come to think of it, there was no description of this red liquid in the novel. It smells fishy even if it's animal blood. Its color hasn't changed over time. Everyone in the Duke's household will be gathered to find the culprit. To return to the room despite that, it's you, Mrs. Byrne. Why did she come back? If I stick my head out a little more, I'll get caught. I can't see anything, Chelsea said. Mrs. Byrne. Servant named Byrne, he said, weren't you going to call the other maids? What are you doing here? Chelsea smiled and said, I was just tidying up in case the lady got startled. Byrne said, didn't the Duke order that nothing be touched? Chelsea said, I'm aware of that. I was just lightly covering it with a cloth. Was it you, Byrne? I'm giving you a chance to confess. Chelsea said, Duke. Duke said, the liquid soaking the bed. With its fishy scent, it's easy to mistake it for blood, but this is ray-proof sap. Byrne said, if it's ray-proof, is it the white flower in the greenhouse? Duke said yes. When its stem is cut, it secretes a transparent, sticky liquid. Byrne said that's correct. When mixed with water, the sap turns red, and commoners use it to dye fabrics. Dookie said this alone isn't enough to identify the culprit, but I noticed a mistake. Before that, Sernia, hiding behind the curtain, listening to the conversation, thinks a mistake. What is it? What mistake? I can't hear it clearly. Duke said, I told you to stay with the twins. Sernia said that's because I wanted to help in some way. Duke said, do you? Sernia said, do you? That's not true. Who in this world wouldn't trust you, Duke? You're famous for handling matters sharper than any sword. Oops. Sernia thinks I got so startled. I blurted everything out without thinking. She said it's a compliment. Duke said, I see. That's good to hear. Sernia said so. What's the nanny's mistake? Sernia thinks that's the Duke's signature mischievous smile. And she said this feels unsettling. Duke said, Sernia. Sernia replied, yes. Duke said, you're very interested in magic, aren't you? You've been consistently reading books related to it. Sernia said yes. She thinks once a hardcore fantasy romance fan. Always one. Stories about magic and elves feel straight out of a fantasy novel. Sernia said, then let me ask you a question. Magic is invisible, but it exists everywhere. However, it's not evenly distributed. Duke said, why is that? She thinks I remember reading it in The Correlation Between Magic and Spirit Arts. Sernia said, because of magic affinity. Everyone has a different level of magic affinity. Duke replied, correct. And magic affinity doesn't apply only to humans. Around this red liquid, there's a concentration of high-level magic. She thinks that's your mistake, Byrne. Chelsea said, I don't know anything about this. I can't even see magic in the first place. Duke said, exactly. Because you can't see magic, you made the mistake of mixing rape-roof with harjen berries. Byrne said, you added harjen berries? She thinks harjen? Duke said, harjen berries are poisonous when used alone, causing headaches and fever. You must have added them to recreate the smell of blood and to poison Sernia with it. But when harjen berries are mixed with rape-roof sap, they don't become poison, they become medicine. Chelsea said, medicine? Duke asked, it's a medicine that boosts magic power. In very small amounts, it slightly increases magic power, which is why commoners use it as an energy booster. Sernia thinks the Duke knows everything from curses to toxic and medicinal plants. At this point, I'd believe it if someone said he's a magician instead of a sword master. Duke said, keep your mouth shut. Dust will get in. Sernia replied, yes, sir. Chelsea asked Sernia with a smile, I see. But, Duke, that doesn't prove I'm the culprit. Duke said, do you think this is all the evidence I have? You still don't understand why I gathered everyone together. The crime of harming a noble is a grave one. This is your last chance to confess, Byrne. Duke said, Byrne. Your time to confess is running out. Duke said, it's this, your apron and gloves? You hid them hurriedly in the wardrobe because the maid cleaning the room arrived earlier than expected. Chelsea said, I don't know anything about this. That apron was stolen recently. Someone must have planted it to frame me. Duke said, framing you say. Is that all you have to say? Cernia thinks there's still more evidence, isn't there? Chelsea said, why? Why on earth? She sat on the ground crying. I followed exactly what the wizard told me, so why didn't it work? Duke said, curses require a price. Because you didn't offer any price, the curse didn't take effect. Chelsea, crying and sad, said the wizard told me that the liquid and the doll would serve as the price. Duke said you should be grateful to the wizard who taught you incorrectly. If you had paid the price for the curse, you would have ended up in the same state as that doll. Duke drew his sword and started walking towards while Cernia stepped forward and stopped the Duke. She thinks, is he planning to execute her? Cernia said, Duke. Duke said, what is it? Cernia said, please allow me to decide the nanny's punishment. Duke said, cursing a noble is a grave crime. But it was only an attempt, wasn't it? Cernia said, I want to hear her reasons before punishing her. Chelsea said, if only Lady Cernia weren't here, my child could have taken her place. Cernia thinks her child? I knew she married into a viscount's family, but Cernia said, I've never seen her visit her child. Chelsea said, because my child was sick, I couldn't afford to rest to pay for the expensive medicine. The Duchess said she was fine with me taking my child here. But the Duke forbade it, saying I couldn't handle raising 4 children on my own. If Lady Cernia weren't here, I could have raised my child here at the Duke's household, she thinks, Mom. Chelsea said it's not a grand reason, but I can understand her love for her child. So that's why she resented Cernia even more. Cernia, who was far more perceptive than I am, must have noticed the subtle malice the nanny held. Perhaps that's why she searched the room beforehand. She must have found the cursed doll before the curse was activated, and that's how the incident unfolded. Cernia said, Mrs. Byrne, stand up. She just needed someone to blame for everything. Just like the original Cernia, who envied the twins. The nanny also resented Cernia. Cernia said, Mrs. Byrne, I hereby dismiss you from your position. Chelsea thinks the twins, Cernia, none of them did anything wrong. Cernia said, I will keep today's events a secret, but you are now banned from working in any noble household. Return to the Viscount's estate, and do not appear in social circles again. Even more so, she thinks instead, for the rest of your life, stay by the side of the child you love. This curse that hurts everyone must come to an end. Chelsea said, My lady, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, my lady. Byrne said, our young lady has grown so much. Cernia thinks, well, it's not like we were harmed anyway. And we've learned something important. A narrative trick. The original novel couldn't be trusted word for word. Duke said this room will be sealed. Cernia said, what? Duke said this room at the end of the hallway is too far. I'm planning to move you anyway. Cernia thinks then, please move me to the room next to the twins. Duke said, if there's any other furniture you want, tell Dane. Cernia said, what I have now is more than enough. Duke said, even though I've offered you to buy anything. Cernia said, oh right. Cernia said, was there more evidence proving Mrs. Byrne was the culprit? Duke said Byrne used something that was actually a magic-enhancing medicine, not a curse. Because its effects take place just by being applied, I could see the increased magic surrounding Byrne. Cernia said, so you noticed at first glance. She thinks, and so, the cursed doll incident came to an end, and the winter at the Duke's estate was passing by. The winter, when the cursed doll incident occurred, has passed, and spring has arrived. Unlike the original Cernia, who passed away at 12, I'm still alive at 17. Cernia Ardentine, 17 years old, surviving is good, but I'm worried about the upcoming event from the original, the Crown Prince's birthday banquet. At this banquet, Ariel falls in love at first sight with Crown Prince Helios. Cernia said, how can I stop her from falling in love at first sight? I've been consistently bad-mouthing the Crown Prince, though. Ariel said, if you don't like the Crown Prince, I don't like him either. Cernia said, phew, I'm worried. Cernia thinks, no, I believe in you, Ariel. Ariel said, Cernia. Cernia. Ariel said, Cernia, why are you so late? Ariel said, I listened carefully in class so I can come and spend time with you. Ariel said, praise me. Ariel/Trial Ardentine, 15 years old. Cernia thinks they're 15, but they still want praise? Ariel said, Cernia, don't get married and stay with me forever instead. Ariel said, no. Sernia will live with me. You go away. Sernia said we can live together, the three of us, just like we do now. Ariel said, I don't want to live with Ariel forever though. But if Sernia says so, I'll tolerate him. Ariel said, I don't like you either. If Sernia wasn't here, I wouldn't want to be with someone like you for a second. Ariel said, I dislike you even more. Sernia said, that's enough. Do you know how precious family is? You should treasure each other's existence. You two are especially irreplaceable siblings. Ariel said, Sernia, you're my family too. You're the most precious to me. Ariel said, and we've connected by blood, Sernia. Sernia thinks that's not exactly what I meant. I guess they've been worried since I lost my parents and was left alone. Sernia said, I know, I've been worried too. You two are the most precious to me. Should we sit down now? She thinks they're like two cute puppies. Ariel said, I want to wear couple dresses with you to the birthday banquet. Sernia said, about that, I'm not going. Ariel said, what? Why aren't you going with me? In the original, Sernia couldn't go to the birthday banquet. But I can't say that. What should I say? Sernia said, I'm sick. A cold. I'm feeling a bit sick. You two go and have fun. Ariel said, how can we have fun if you're sick? If you aren't going, then I'm not going either. Ariel said, same for me. Ariel said, no. Sernia said, the Duke looks handsome again today. Ariel said, everyone, make sure to attend the birthday banquet. Sernia said, I think I'm coming down with a cold. If she's sick, she shouldn't push herself. Ariel said, we should call the priest. Sernia said, a priest. Not a doctor, but a priest? Do they use divine power for a cold? Sernia said, no, I'll be fine if I rest properly. Then you should get some proper rest and go. Sernia thinks I have no other choice but to use my final card. Usually, a big party requires an invitation. Even within the same family, not everyone gets invited. Thankfully, I'm one of the ones not invited to this banquet. Sernia said, actually, I didn't receive an invitation from the Imperial Palace. Ariel said, Sernia, there's no need to go to that party. She thinks no. It's just that there's no need for me to go to the birthday banquet. Ariel said, those who don't recognize your worth are just ignorant. Don't mind them. She thinks I just don't want to go. Ariel said, how dare they not send an invitation to my sister? Ariel thinks, how dare they? But it's the Imperial family we're talking about. It's impossible to argue now. Duke, please help. Ariel said, it doesn't matter. No one can stop the Ardentine family. Let's go. Sernia said, that man. He's the biggest problem. She thinks, the Emperor is above the Duke, you know. Anyway, now, I'm being forced to attend, right? Maid said, wow, it's so pretty, lady. It suits you so well. She thinks it's a bit. Sernia said it's white and flowing. She thinks like a wedding dress. Chelsea said this dress was prepared by the Duke. Sernia said, This dress? Duke? She thinks the Duke? Sernia said, are you joking? Chelsea said, no, it's true. The Duke personally chose this dress. Sernia thinks I should thank the Duke later. A voice behind the door. Sernia. Are you done? Sernia. Can we come in? Sernia said, yes. Ariel said, Sernia, you look so beautiful. Ariel said she has always been beautiful. Ariel said, well, yes, but seeing her all dressed up like this is a first. The most beautiful person at the banquet will definitely be you, Sernia. Sernia said, really? You two are dazzling as well. Ariel said, I'm glad. I was wondering if you'd think I was pretty. Sernia said, you've always been pretty, haven't you? Ariel said, Sernia, what about me? Sernia said, of course, you're dashing as well. Burn said, ladies, young master, the carriage is ready. Sernia thinks I've constantly been anxious about how to avoid the same fate as in the original. I've loved and cared for the twins with all my heart, hoping they wouldn't end up like in the original. But what if the plot of the original story is an unavoidable fate for the twins? Could I, the living Sernia, become a future obstacle for them? That's why I've never stepped out of the Duke's house until now. But today, I'll step out into the world for the very first time. People are thinking Duke Ardentine and Lady Sernia are entering. Sernia thinks this attention is overwhelming. Ariel said, stand up straight. There's no one here you need to fear. Sernia thinks, is my trembling that obvious? She said it's reassuring to be with the Duke. Duke said, but Sernia, how long? People said His Majesty the Emperor and the Crown Prince are entering. The glory of the empire, descendant of the sun, we greet his majesty the emperor. Duke said, lift your heads. Man said, I thank those who gathered to celebrate the crown prince's birthday. Let me express my gratitude to all of you. Cernia thinks, wow, he really looks like the principal. So that must be Crown Prince Helios. His silver blonde hair shines brighter than diamonds. His golden eyes sparkle like stars. He's exactly how he's described in the novel, a textbook handsome guy. Duke said, lastly, everyone, enjoy the banquet. Cernia thinks, did our eyes just meet? Ariel said, Cernia. She replied, ah. Ariel? Ariel said, hide behind father. The crown prince is still looking for a dance partner since he doesn't have a fiancé yet. Cernia thinks, with so many beauties at the banquet, would the crown prince really ask me to dance? You should be more worried. Ariel said, beauty. Cernia asked, really? Ariel said, Cernia, would you like to dance with me? I'm dancing with my sister. Ariel said, what? Are you going to dance with another? Cernia said, stop it, you guys. There are too many people here. Ariel said, what? Are you complaining? Even if you are, I won't listen. Cernia said, haha, it's an honor. Please take care of me. Hee. Duke said, the crown prince has picked his dance partner. Do you want to dance with the crown prince? Cernia said no. Duke said, then, who will you dance with? Ariel thinks, here, it's best to go with someone safe. Cernia said, the Duke. You have to choose the most powerful person in the house. Duke said, it's all right. You just need to look at me. Cernia said, yes, Duke. Duke and Cernia dancing. Duke said, Cernia. Cernia said, yes. Duke said, for how long are you going to call me Duke? Cernia thinks this is the first time. The Duke is showing his feelings like this. Cernia said, then. Duke asked, uncle. She said, uncle. Uncle. Duke said, I'm sorry, uncle. It's fine. It's uncle now. Cernia thinks, phew, one song's over. Cernia said, he seems happy, TCH. Ariel said, sister. I won the rock, paper, scissors. I'm your next partner. Cernia said, so you decided with rock, paper, scissors? But who's going to lead? Ariel smile, hee. Cernia and Ariel dancing, and she thinks, as expected, the future socialite queen. Ariel said, are you calm now? Cernia said, I saw you step on the Duke's feet earlier. Ariel said, you step on people's feet whenever you're nervous. I actually expected that. Cernia said, what? Then you should have stopped me. Ariel said, I definitely tried. I suggested the first dance, but it was you who chose it. I would have been bored to death if I hadn't come with you. She said, let's make lots of friends while we're at it. Ariel replied, I only need you, sister. Cernia said, Ariel, I want you to see the world and meet many people. Ariel said, still. Ariel said, I still want to stay with you, sister. Cernia closed her and said, sure. I'm the place you can always come back to. I'll always be here. All right. That's a promise. Ariel said, sister. This time with me. She said 3 songs in a row is too much. She needs to rest now. Helios said, you're the hidden treasure of the Duke's family. Helios Islanda, 15 years old, first prince. Cernia said, glory of the empire, the crown prince, descendant of the sun. Prince Helios said, are you young Master Ariel, the next head of the Argentine family? It's a pleasure to meet you. Ariel said, yes. Helios said, is this your twin sister, Lady Ariel? Ariel said, yes. Helios said, Lady Cernia, would you dance a song with me? Cernia thinks, now that I think about it, Helios seemed to find palace life boring. He seemed to enjoy interesting things or events that look fun. Ariel said, I'm sorry, but my sister already promised to dance with me. Helios said, I didn't ask the young master. Ariel's right. Cernia said, I'm sorry, but we made this promise a week ago. I hope the crown prince will understand. I'm worried about Ariel. Ariel said, she'll manage. Ariel said, sister, I'll keep a low profile so the crown prince doesn't notice me. Cernia said, all right. I'll walk around for a bit and find Ariel. Servant said, are you looking for Lady Ariel? She just went out to the garden. Cernia said, thank you. Time has passed so quickly. Cernia said, Ariel, she thinks this dress is too heavy. I can't swim. Am I going to drown in this life too? Cernia said, huff, huff. Oh, huh? She thinks it's a shallow pond? How embarrassing. Cernia said, thank you very much. Black, a color that absolutely couldn't exist in a human from this world. A color born from bad omens and calamity. Serious? the sub-male lead of the original novel and Helios' half-brother. He inherited the curse the Empress placed upon the concubine, leaving him unable to feel emotions. A tragic prince. Cernia shouts, "Excuse me. If you're going to save someone, do it all the way." Sirius said, "Saved you?" "It wasn't even deep enough to drown in." Cernia said, "The dress was heavy. If you hadn't pulled me out, I would have died." Sirius said, "Why, did I save you?" Cernia said, "I know." "See, I know's mon all right," she said, achoo. "So, could you help me?" Sirius pulled up on his hand. Cernia said, Thank you." Sirius said, "You owe me now. Unless you were planning on pretending that nothing happened." Cernia thinks not a favor, but a debt? Seriously? Cernia said, "You saved my life. It's only right I repay you." Sirius said, "Then, repay me with something I want." Cernia thinks, "What could that be?" "Then, what do you want?" Sirius said, "This way." Ariel said, "Sister." "Sister." Duke said, "Are you okay? I heard you fell into the pond." Cernia said, "Yes, sir." She thinks, "Oh, we haven't introduced ourselves yet." "Right." Cernia said, "This gentleman saved me." Sirius said, "Glory of the Empire, descendant of the sun, Prince Sirius, I greet you." "Thank you for helping, Cernia. I'll make an official visit to the palace to properly thank you later. Forgive me, but we must leave now since my niece might catch a cold." Cernia said, "Uncle." Cernia said, "I can walk on my own." Ariel said, "Are you all right, sister?" Ariel said, "Are you really okay?" Ariel said, "I was so shocked." Lady Canarine suddenly ran over, saying, "You fell into the pond." Cernia thinks Lady Canarine. She thinks then the one who spoke to me back there was Lady Canarine. Aside from that, she said, "What's wrong?" Cernia said, "It's nothing." Cernia thinks, "I want to ask. Were you worried I might have been hurt?" Is what I want to say. I just meant to watch. It was shallow enough for her to stand up on her own. But somehow, my thoughts didn't align with my actions, and my hand had already reached out to her. Did I just save someone? She thinks her past. Sirius said, "Why, did I save you?" She thinks the curse hasn't been lifted, so why? Her silver-gray eyes shimmered under the moonlight. Cernia said, "Could you help me?" Sirius thinks her soft voice, free of fear or hesitation. "I don't know why, but those silver-gray eyes," Sirius said this way. She thinks I wanted them to look at me. Ariel said, "Sister." "Sister." She thinks again I wanted them to look only at me. After the birthday banquet ended peacefully, the Duke's family began returning to their normal lives. Except for the visit of an unexpected guest. Canarine J. Fine, 15 years old, daughter of the J. Fine Count family. According to the notes, that is. She thinks, in other words, Ariel's right hand and villainous. Cernia said, "Lady Canarine, what brings you to Argentine?" Cernia thinks seriously, what could this villainous supporting character want with me? Canarine said, "I came to apologize for what happened at the birthday banquet." She thinks, that yellow dress. "So, it was you, Canarine, who pushed me into the pond." Cernia thinks, but still, I didn't expect her to come and apologize directly like this. Canarine said, "I'm sorry, Lady Cernia. That's because I was jealous of you." Cernia said, "Jealous? But I'm not even the direct line of the Duke's family. There's nothing about me that you should envy." Canarine said, "It's family's love. You've got something I never had in my entire life. I am really jealous of you, Cernia." Ariel said, "Cernia, who can laugh even after stepping on the Duke's foot. She thinks first wave of embarrassment." Canarine said, That's why. It was just meant to be a surprise in the shallow pond." Huh? "Oh my. Cernia is. Someone please help. I thought you could stand up right away." She thinks stepped on Duke's foot plus can't stand up in shallow pond. Second wave of embarrassment. Canarine crying, "I'm so sorry." The writer said even before being reincarnated into the world of the novel, there were many children who did cruel things just for fun. Cernia thinks Canarine may not have done the right thing, but at least, she has the decency to apologize in person. Cernia said, "Canarine, it's okay." Canarine said, "That day, I also got scolded by my father. I'm a mere tool. A tool meant to help my family achieve success. And yet, they see the money spent on me as a waste. That's why, to be genuinely loved by your family, and can laugh even when you make mistakes, I really envied you, Cernia." The writer said perhaps the jealousy that Canarine felt in the original story was because she wanted to prove her worth to her family. She was just a young child, desperately struggling to survive and be loved. Cernia said, I hope that my forgiveness, even if just a little, can bring her some comfort. Ariel shouts, Cernia. I heard Lady Canarine came to apologize. But I'm still mad at her. Cernia thinks thank goodness. Before Ariel could cause any trouble, Canarine came to confess. After realizing Canarine pushed me, it felt like she was up to something. Cernia clenched bottle and Rose Anmed said resolve of that. But even today, a letter arrived from the young lady, you know? Ariel said don't reply to it. Don't just brush it aside with a laugh. Cernia said it's not working. Canarine gave something and said, oh, a letter of acceptance from the academy. Cernia saw and said so. It's time for you to enter the academy. Ariel said it'd be nice if you could go too. Cernia said I already gave up on enrolling. She thinks last year I was offered admission too, but I turned it down. It's not that I don't want to go, but Daisy, the main protagonist, will be there at the academy too. Canarine said, oh, how pretty. Cernia thinks the academy is only for 2 years. If I enroll, I'll have to graduate by the time the twins start. Cernia said if I go to academy, it'll waste so much time. I like to spend time with you guys rather than going to the academy. She replied, really don't feel like going back to school now. Canarine said I know it's childish, but I just want to be with Cernia more. Mrs. Burns said, Miss Cernia, the Duke is looking for you. Duke said, I'm going to the palace tomorrow. Cernia thinks tomorrow, I'm going to the palace to thank them for what happened before. You're going too, right? Is how the Duke speaks. Cernia said I'll come along. Duke replied, do as you please. Cernia thinks why is he looking at me like that? Duke replied, do you have anything more to say? Cernia said, do I need to buy juice and bring it to properly greet someone? Duke replied, since they saved your life, we should repay them with something of equal value. Cernia said the value of a life. Duke said, close your mouth. Dust will fill it. Cernia said okay. Then, is it alright if I personally prepare something for Prince Sirius? Duke said sure. Since I'll prepare the offering for His Majesty, you can prepare the gift for the prince. Cernia said understood. Can Ariel come along too? I see, so Ariel will join us. Even if it's not allowed, she'll probably still show up. Alright. Then, I'll head out first. Cernia thinks actually, I've already decided on what to give to Sirius. Cernia cleans something and thinks and says this. This will help with Sirius's curse. A spirit stone imbued with the power of the water spirit. The shimmering spiritual energy within the stone resembles the color of Daisy's eyes. Sirius' curse, which was mediated through spirits, weakened in places where the presence of spiritual energy was strong. It was only natural that Sirius was drawn to Daisy, who was loved by the spirits. Besides, wasn't it Daisy's spirit friend, Elisa, who revealed the truth about the curse? As someone with no connection to spirits, the only thing I could do was offer a spirit stone as a temporary measure. Cernia thinks if I go to the Imperial Palace to deliver the spirit stone, I might run into the Empress. If it's the Empress, the one who cursed the Emperor's other pregnant wife, tainting even Sirius with the curse, and also taught the curse to Ariel, who was blinded by jealousy. Come to think of it, the final villain is the Empress, isn't she? Firstly, let's avoid the Empress as much as possible. Now, aside from the twins, the original characters will have no place in my life. For a life without turbulence. For an easy life. Cernia said, glory of the Empire, descendants of the sun. Greetings, Your Majesty the Emperor. King said it seems that all of the Duke's children are clever. The Empire's future is bright. Duke gives the box and says thank you. Here is a token of gratitude. King opens the box and says, oh, necklaces. And King clenches his hand and says, is this Triska's tears? A treasure infused with the energy of the Fire Spirit King. That's right. Since you're here, I'd like just the two of us to talk, if that's all right. That way it won't be a hassle next time we meet. Duke replied, all right. Cernia thinks he looks quite annoyed. I should be careful. She said, Ariel. Ariel. Then, we will leave first. Chelsea said, I will guide you to Prince Sirius' palace. Cernia said uncle seemed really annoyed. I hope he's calmed down by the time we get on the carriage. Ariel said he probably won't say much to us, but Ariel might end up getting dragged to the training grounds. Cernia thinks Ariel, you don't know, but when the Duke gets annoyed, it both bothers me too sometimes. Silent tea time. Cernia said it feels like we've been walking for a long time. Chelsea said we've come this far, it's only a bit further ahead. She thinks my garbage stamina, I still have half of the day to go. Cernia said I go for walks often, but why is Standa still the same? Ariel said, who is it? Help. Please help me. Ariel said, Cernia. Cernia said, are you all right? As she started to walk toward Ariel, she found the injured girl sitting on the ground, and the girl started to say, oh, it's bleeding. Cernia said it might hurt, but please be patient. She thinks it's dyeing the handkerchief. Why is there so much? Ariel said, Cernia, I told the maid to inform them that a young lady is injured. If you wait a little, a knight or a doctor will come. Cernia said, what a relief. You must have been shocked. Oh, come to think of it, I haven't introduced myself. I'm Cernia Ardentine. The girl thinks I heard that today that the Duke of Ardentine will have an audience with His Majesty the Emperor. I'm not sure why these people are here, but they're so kind. Girl said thank you for your help, Lady Cernia. Cernia said then, what is your name? Girl replied, I'm Bella. I'm Bella Kylan. My name is Bella Kalin. Cernia said, yes, Lady Bella. Ariel said, sister, at least put a handkerchief down before you sit. Cernia said, but I don't have a handkerchief. Ariel said, use mine. Cernia thought, again, are they fighting again? Cernia said, fine. I'll use both. Lady Bella. Bella said, yes? Me, Cernia said, I'll wrap one of the handkerchiefs around the injured area, and with the remaining handkerchief, I'll wrap the energy stone I brought today. Just for a moment. If you place it over your eyes, there, does it feel cool? Your eyes have been red since earlier. Bella said, that's refreshing. She thought, His Highness the Crown Prince once found me like this too, when I had fallen down. Helios said, Bella. There you are. Are you all right? She thought. The Crown Prince was like the prince from my fairy tale. Since I had held on to this love for so long, I recognized it immediately, that Helios had taken an interest in the Ardentine family. At the birthday banquet, the two of them looked so perfect together that I could understand why His Highness was interested. I told myself not to be greedy and promised to be satisfied just by being by Helios's side. Even as I tried to soothe my heart, I couldn't help but feel uneasy about His Highness taking an interest in the Ardentine ducal house. It's strange. The person I didn't want to see is right in front of me. And yet, it feels comforting. Cernia said, come to think of it, Ariel and Ariel, aren't you going to introduce yourselves? Ariel said, we already greeted each other at the Crown Prince's birthday banquet. Ariel said, you weren't there, were you, sister? Cernia thought. That's because I was drowning at the time. Cernia smiled, haha. Bella said, I was truly impressed by Lady Ariel's dancing. You and Helios looked good together. Cernia said, Ariel, you danced with the Crown Prince. Ariel said, yes, His Majesty the Emperor instructed it, so we danced together. Cernia thought, in the original novel's side story, it never mentioned that they danced together. The cursed doll incident happened, and I ended up attending the Crown Prince's birthday banquet. Do events from the original story always have to repeat themselves? Helios thought, Bella said, brother. Kylan said, are you hurt badly? Bella said, my leg is a little. Kylan said, your leg? Get on my back. Kylan lifted her carefully and said, thank you for helping, Bella. I'm late in introducing myself. I am Grenwan Kylan, Marquis Kylan's household, 15 years old. Kylan said, I should also express my gratitude. Helios Islanda, Crown Prince, 15 years old, thought, Bella is like my own little sister. Glory of the Empire, descendant of the sun. Cernia said, it is an honor to meet you, Crown Prince Helios. Helios said, we meet again, Lady Cernia. Ariel said, stop staring at her. You'll wear out my sister's face. Cernia replied, ah well, Cernia thought, no, Ariel. My face is thicker than iron. Helios said, you think just because I, the Crown Prince, look at her, her face will wear out. Ariel said, yes. It will. I won't allow it, Helios said. And why should I need your permission? Cernia said. Ariel. Stop, Ariel. Ariel said. Understood, sister. Cernia said. That's not it. That's not what I meant. Bella said. My apologies. Lady Cernia is just too adorable. I couldn't help but laugh. Helios smiled and said, Indeed, Lady Cernia is quite cute. Cernia said, with everyone complimenting me like this, I don't know where to put myself. In any case, I must be on my way to meet Prince Sirius, so I will take my leave. Cernia thought, this is bad. Being surrounded by these twins and having Helios teasing me is the worst. I should retreat. Helios said, what a shame. I look forward to seeing you again. Cernia replied, no, thanks. Ariel thought, is this really the Imperial Prince's palace? It looks so neglected from the outside. She said, but the inside is neat though. You must have had a hard time coming all this way. I'm Sirius Aslanda, 15th Prince of the Empire, Cernia thought, emotionless smile and mechanical gestures. This is exactly how Sirius was in the original story I know. Cernia said, it was a little strange when we first met. I wanted to express my gratitude as soon as possible, so I apologize for coming so suddenly. Sirius said, it's all right. I wanted to see Lady Cernia as well. Cernia thought, that's strange. The prince's palace looks like it was hastily tidied up inside. Even the attendants don't seem like permanent staff. Cernia said, the tea has a nice fragrance. Sirius said, does it? She thought, don't tell me. You don't even have tea time? Cernia said, please try my cake as well. Sirius said, it's a bit too sweet for my taste. I don't usually eat sweet things. Cernia thought, my goodness, even tea and cake are unfamiliar to him? This is serious. Cernia thought, I wish I could take him away from the Empress and bring him to the duchy. Cernia said, but he's not a puppy, so there's no way I could take him so easily. Sirius said, puppy? Cernia said, no, I just suddenly wanted to raise a puppy. Sirius said, so you like dogs? Cernia said, huh? Well, I suppose I do. Prince Sirius said, I see. Ariel said, it seems like someone teleported. Cernia said, through the Imperial Palace barrier, she thought. So he's a genius capable of breaking through the Imperial Palace barrier? Cernia said, that is. Sirius said, since you said you wanted to raise a puppy. Cernia said, I appreciate the thought, but I still need the Duke's permission, so I can't just take it right away. She thought, are you abandoning this child? Is this all just an act? Those ears. Cernia said, then if I have no choice. Sirius, thank you for last time. This is my gift in return. Sirius said, thank you. I will keep and cherish it well. She thought, huh? Just now, did something glow? Was it just my imagination? Ariel said, the gift we're giving you is a sword. Cernia thought, the twins also had gifts, so we decided to come together. She thought Helios said, thank you. Take it with you. Cernia thought, it must be a good sword, yet he didn't even unwrap it. Cernia said, then we should be going now. Sirius said, already leaving? Cernia thought, it must be my imagination that Sirius looks disappointed, right? His acting deserves a Best Actor award. It really does. Cernia said, well then, see you next time. Sirius said, next time. Cernia said, Prince Sirius gave this to me. Duke said, don't tell me, you're going to keep it. Cernia said, it would be cruel to abandon it. He replied, I forbid it. Cernia thought, can't we just keep it? Please? Cernia said, Uncle. Duke said, fine, but it's not allowed in your room. Cernia replied, yes. I'll only keep it in the yard. Uncle, thank you so much. That's great. She hugged the dog. What should we name it? Ariel said, since it's black, how about Black Iron? How about Ink? Ariel said, who names a dog Black Iron? Ariel said, I think Ink seems more weird. Cernia said, how about Night? Since it's black, like the night sky. Ariel said, that's cute. Night? Ariel said, your naming sense isn't that great either, sister. Ariel kicked his foot hard and said, if you like it, then let's go with that. Cernia said, Night, your name is now Night, Dogwoof. She thought, with this pup around, even when the twins go to the academy, it won't feel as lonely. It all started with a letter from J. Fine. Sernia wrote in this letter, "My father found out the truth. He insists that Duke Condell must meet you, Lady Sernia. I think my father wants to tie you down. Our mansion is much more modest compared to the Duke's residence where you live. I have been delaying my father's request because I don't want to trouble you. But recently, my father has become very firm about it, so I had no choice but to send this invitation. He might end up offending you, Lady Sernia. If a formal invitation arrives, please reject it. Waiting for your reply, Canarine Germain." She thought. Along with a lengthy letter came an invitation. Now, I'm heading to the J. Fine Count's estate. The J. Fine Count's estate, originally a Viscount family, but 3 generations ago, a gold mine was discovered in their territory, elevating them to a count's house. Known for their excessive vanity and often looking down on poorer nobles, their reputation among aristocrats is not great. All this because of Canarine, the most beautiful woman in the world. After her apology last time, Canarine has been sending me letters every week. Through our exchanges, we became friends. When the Count learned about our relationship, he invited me to his mansion. Canarine did ask me to refuse the invitation, but still, does Canarine think of me as a friend too? But I mean, she's my first friend. Man said, "Please come in, Lady Sernia." "We've been expecting you," she replied. "It is an honor to meet you." "I am Sernia Ardentine," Count said. "Where are the others?" "Did you come alone?" Sernia replied. "Yes, I came alone." Count said, "Would you like to continue our conversation inside?" Count replied, "Welcome." "Canarine is waiting inside, so please go in." Man bowed and said, "I'll guide you to Lady Canarine's room. She thinks, so the Count's true target was Ariel. Using Canarine, he must be trying to form an alliance with the Duke's house through marriage. Too bad. I came alone today." Man said, "This way, please." Sernia thinks, "There's a lot of stuff, but it's not pretty. It's all over the place. So messy." Man voice her, "My lady, I have brought Lady Sernia." Canarine said, "Sernia, why are you here?" "I told you to refuse, didn't I? Did my father say anything to you?" Sernia replied, "No, he didn't say much." Canarine said, "My father told me to wait in my room, so I couldn't come out to greet you." "I'm sorry," Sernia replied, "it's okay. Seeing you again after so long, I feel so happy." Canarine said, "I also feel happy to see you, Sernia." Sernia thinks, but looking at Canarine's room, it's so simple, unlike the reception room. The J. Fine Count, he only decorates the areas that others can see. Sernia said, "Shall we go for a walk outside?" Canarine said, "Well, my father doesn't like it when I wander around the house." "I'm sorry." Sernia thinks, a father who dislikes seeing his daughter walk around her own home. Sernia said, "Then, let's just chat in the room." Canarine said, "Sounds good. I also prepared your favorite Mont Blanc cake. Since you are coming today, I asked the chef to make the best Mont Blanc and tea." Sernia said, "It's delicious." Canarine said, "Really? I'm so relieved. Next week marks the end of the year. Have you finished preparing for the National Foundation Festival?" Sernia replied, "I went to the tailor's last week with the twins." Canarine said, "Sernia, you'd look stunning in any dress." Sernia thinks, "This will be my first festival with a friend." Sernia replied, "What about your dress, Canarine?" Canarine said, "I have no idea what I'll be wearing. My father always picks the most expensive dress from his tailor." Sernia thinks, a men's tailor for a nobleman, choosing his daughter's dress? Without even checking the design, just picking the most expensive one? He doesn't want to spend time on it, but still wants to. Canarine said, "Is something bothering you?" Sernia replied, "It's you I'm worried about." "But I can't say that." Sernia said, "The twins will be entering the academy soon. I'm worried about how they'll do." Canarine said, "I see. If it's them, Sernia, you don't have to worry. I'm sure they'll do just fine. It might sound sudden, but I'm glad I went to the Duke's house to apologize. I never imagined I could become friends with you, Sernia." "And, Sernia," Sernia replied, "Yes. What is it? Could you call me by my nickname?" Canarine said, "My mother used to call me Kana. It's the name of a small yellow flower that blooms together. My mother passed away 5 years ago after giving birth to my sibling. She came from a count's family but was poor. My father always said I should have married someone of higher status. He repeated that to me over and over. After my mother passed, no one has ever called me by my nickname again. Close friends call each other by their nicknames, don't they? And you're my first friend, Sernia. If you don't mind, can you call me Kana? Sernia replied, of course. You're my first friend, too, Canarine. No, I mean Kana. From now on, I'll call you that. So, please smile, Kana, Canarine said. Thank you, Sernia. If you don't mind, may I give you a nickname? Sernia said. A nickname for me? Canarine said, yes. I've been thinking about one for a while. How about Nia? My mother used to read to me. It's the name of a fairy from an old story. Sernia thinks, mischievous fairy, but one that loves and protects people. Canarine said, when I see you, Nia, I can't help but think of that fairy from the story. Sernia said, a fairy. Sernia thinks, I think Canarine is more like a fairy than I am. She's small and cute. Sernia said, if you're curious, I can lend you the book. Since this book holds precious memories with your mother, I'll read it carefully and return it to you. Man said, my lady, the carriage from the Duke's house has arrived. Sernia said, I guess I have to go now. Then, Kana, I'll see you at the founding festival. Canarine said, travel safely, Nia. And write to me. Sernia thinks a nickname, Neen. Someday, Canarine too will have someone who calls her by a warm nickname. Until then, I want to be Canarine's reliable friend. When I get home, I should come up with nicknames for the twins too. After visiting the J-Fine household, peaceful days followed. An uneventful daily life. Time flowed gently. Sirius said, Sernia. Sernia thinks, a deep, pleasant voice. It's too vivid to be a dream, a man's voice. Besides Ariel and the Duke, the only men in this house are the servants. But at this hour, no one should be upstairs. Someone broke through the Duke's magical barrier? An assassin? Again voiced Sernia. Sirius said, I'm over here. Sernia woke up and saw the window. Sirius said, it's been a while, Sernia. Sernia thinks, why is Sirius here? Sernia said, why is Sirius here? Sirius said, well, I was anxious, since next time never came. Sernia thinks, next time? Sirius said, more importantly, it's cold. Here, take this. Sernia said, thank you. Wait, no, how did you even get into the Duke's estate? Dog voice woof. Sernia said, bam. You're supposed to be in the yard. How did you get to the second floor? Sirius said, you named him Bam. Sernia thinks Sirius laughed. Is he pretending to be relaxed to lower my guard? Sirius said, there's no need to be wary. That little one and I are connected by magic. That's how I was able to bypass the Duke's barrier. Ariel thinks I knew it. That's why the Duke. Sirius said, but you're forbidden from entering my room. Sernia said, if you're magically linked to Bam, do you also share senses with him? Like, if I pet him, will he feel it? Sirius said, I haven't tried that, but it's possible. Do you want to test it? Sernia said, no. Sirius said, just knowing you guys are connected is already overwhelming. Shoo. I was just joking. If Sernia doesn't like it, I won't do it. Sernia thinks, when Sirius jokes, it always sounds serious. Sernia said, the wind is getting colder. Let's go inside for now. Sirius said, are you sure I can enter? Sernia said, talking like this doesn't seem like it'll end anytime soon. Let's sit and talk, shall we? Sernia said, I don't think our conversation is going to end soon. Shall we sit down and talk? Then was that whisper I heard earlier also from you, Prince Sirius? Sirius said, that's right. It's a sound transmission spell. No one besides you can hear it. Sernia said, as I thought. Then, what did you mean by next? Didn't you make a promise last time? Let's meet next time. Sernia said, you're right. It's already been half a year. I didn't expect you to be waiting for me. Sirius said then, was that a lie? Sernia replied, no. It was just a greeting. Besides, we met today anyway. Sirius said, if I hadn't come to see you, I guess we couldn't meet forever. Sernia smiled and said, haha, we would have met eventually, wouldn't we? At the founding festival or the academy entrance ceremony. Sernia thinks the silence is heavy. Sirius said, I don't want to only see you on public events, Lady Sernia, but it seems like that's not the case for you. Sernia thinks, what was that? Just now, there was a red aura, Sernia said. No, that's not it, if you were startled. Sirius said you were startled. Sernia thinks fine. Since it's come to this, let me explain everything from the start. Sernia said Prince Sirius, if you want to meet someone, you should make an appointment beforehand. The simplest way is to send a letter. Sirius said an appointment. Letter. Sernia thinks I felt this the last time as well, but Sirius wasn't properly cared for. He doesn't even know basic etiquette. She said he must have struggled. Sernia thinks plus, because of the original storyline, my perspective was narrow, but for Sirius, he is feeling emotions right now. And that emotion is curiosity. In the original storyline, a feeling such as love, he will experience that through Daisy. I don't think our conversation is going to end soon. Sirius said yes, to send a letter, you need to write the place and time. It's even better if you include a reason. The duchy has a designated place to receive letters, so you can give it to a servant. Alright, Sirius Palace didn't seem to have any servants. Sernia said if you want to send a letter to me, you can ask Prince Helios to deliver it. Sirius said I don't want him to know. Sernia said then, how about using magic? Wouldn't that work? Sirius said that will be an easy way. Sirius said right? But Lady Sernia, aren't you being too defenseless? A man visits you in the middle of the night, and instead of sending him away, you invite him into your room. Do you understand what that could mean? Sirius said your purple hair and silver gray eyes. Every part of you tempts me. I told you, didn't I? You're far too defenseless. Inviting a man into your room at night, dressed in nothing but thin sleepwear, this is dangerous. Even if I try to resist, I waver. Sernia said absolutely not. She shouts way on. Sirius said I'm sorry. I was swayed by your scent and lost control for a moment. Sernia said no matter what, you're the prince. There are things you must keep in mind. Sirius said apologize. Such actions require the other person's consent. Besides, you haven't even had your coming-of-age ceremony yet. Sirius said you're right. Sernia thinks is he being sincere, or is he acting? Sirius said from now on, I will never touch Lady Sernia without permission. I promise. Until I become an adult, and only with your consent. Sernia said you must keep that promise. Even if you're an adult, it is not okay if the other person is still a minor. Doing it one-sidedly is a crime. Sernia thinks later, I need to teach him the difference between ask and command. Sirius said then, I'll take my leave. Sernia said, are you leaving? Sirius said, Lady Sernia, may I kiss the back of your hand? Sernia said, okay. The kiss lasted too long. It reminded me of how Sirius almost kissed me earlier. Sirius said next time I come to see you, I'll send a letter first. Sernia said okay. I'll be waiting. She thinks then, I'll see you at the founding festival. Chin? His hair and eyes. Sirius said just now, the color changed, didn't it? Ariel said sister, I'm here. Sernia replied ack. She thinks right. The clothes Sirius left behind. If she finds out we met at night, it'll be a disaster. Sernia said, well, what brings you here? Ariel said, as expected, I also want to follow you. Sernia thinks no wonder they're father and daughter. A style of speaking that cuts straight to the important part. Ariel's style of speaking is gradually resembling Uncle's. Sernia said in 2 days, instead of going with Uncle to the pre-welcome event, Ariel and I will be going together. You want to attend Kylan's tea party, right? Why? Ariel said, I don't trust Ariel enough to leave you with him. Sernia said, Ariel, you said you wanted to go to the welcome party. I'd be glad if you don't give up on what you want just because of me. Ariel said, Lady Ariel, the Duke is waiting for you. Sernia said, enjoy the welcome party. Ariel said, you too, enjoy the event. Sernia said, okay, please tell me all about the party later at dinner. I look forward to hearing that. Chelsea said, Miss Sernia, we'll help you get ready. Sernia thinks she wants to follow me instead of going to the party. She really wants to go. Aren't the kids being too dependent on me? If the twins go to academy, they'll be separated from me. I need to protect them for a little longer. I didn't expect to meet Bella again here. Bella said, Lady Sernia, I've been waiting for you. Sernia said, thank you for inviting us to today's party, Lady Bella. No, it's my honor to have you two with us. Sernia thinks there are so many desserts. Bella said, Lady Sernia. Kylan said, thank you for helping Bella last time. Sernia thinks Grendwin. Sernia said, no, it's fine. It's the right thing to do. I'm glad to hear that Lady Bella is safe. Kylan said, I won't forget this kindness. I plan to give a gift, but I can't think of anything that can't be obtained from the Duke's family. It seems I can't repay you with anything material. Instead, if you need any help in the future, please don't hesitate to ask. Sernia thinks I don't want to make you repay the debt like Sirius did. Sernia said I didn't do it with the intention of receiving anything in return. It's okay. Kylan said no, please don't hesitate to tell me. Sernia said all right, I will. By the way, Lady Bella looks like an angel today. Bella was always looking like an angel. She thinks with her fair and translucent skin, flowing blonde hair, eyes bluer than the sky. Her heart is so pure, it feels like an angel has descended to earth. Sernia thinks, come to think of it, this guy has a sister complex. Kylan said Bella's dazzling blonde hair is. Sernia thinks this is something I never saw after he met Daisy in the original story. Kylan said it's as beautiful as something a craftsman would create, carefully pulling each thread with gold. She thinks so. This is the kind of older brother you've been all along. Sernia said, and those eyes are like aquamarines, carefully crafted by a craftsman, right? Kylan smiled and said that's right. So, you had the same thought as mine. Bella, from behind, said, brother, you should drink the tea before it gets cold. And it's rude to keep talking without a break like that to Lady Sernia. Kylan said, oh ouch, Belle. You don't have to feel embarrassed. Sernia said, because I too, whenever I see Lady Bella, have the same thought as Lord Grendwin. Kylan said, as expected, Lady Sernia has a keen eye for these things. Sernia said, Ariel, are you really alone eating like that? How petty, you should greet Lord Grendwin. Ariel said, long time no see. Kylan said, long time no see. Sernia thinks that's it. Bella said, actually, every time I went to the palace with my brother, I would pass the Duke's household and think of you, Lady Sernia. Can I call you sister? Sernia said, of course. Helios said, then, I want to call you sister as well. You can call me Rent as well, sister. Sernia thinks it's a bit creepy that a big guy is calling me sister. Ariel said the one who can call her sister is only me. Kylan said, since we're the same age, I'll speak more casually. I look forward to meeting you at the founding festival, sister. Ariel said, I said stop calling her sister. Sernia said, you two got along well, huh? Sernia thinks perhaps these two might end up being close friends. Bella's first friend, Sernia. Grendwin's friend, Ariel. Without Daisy appearing, a lot of things are starting to change from the original story. You made a new sibling while I was gone. Sernia spent the whole evening suffering from the twins' jealousy. If this goes on, I might end up growing fond of the Kylan siblings. Sernia thinks the Islanda Empire, which has lasted for 1,000 years, marks the new year from the founding day. That's why today is both January 1st and the day of the founding festival. A man said, Miss, take a look here before you leave. Sernia thinks you can feel the excitement in the air. Try the rare fruit that came from the east. With the week-long founding festival coming up, actually, I have something more important to do than attend the festival, so I secretly left before the Imperial event. The founding festival is the perfect opportunity to return serious clothes, but if I take them out like this, I'm afraid that Uncle might get suspicious. Sernia said, what's that? So, the plan I came up with is, I'm going to buy a little accessory as a gift for Canarine. I will wrap it in a big gift box along with some snacks. I will wrap serious clothes as well and take them to the founding festival party. By the way, I wonder if orange would look good on Canarine. Dog voice, woof. 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 Sernia said, why are you barking like that? Helios said, Lady Sernia? Sernia said, see Crown Prince. What is the person supposed to be preparing for the founding event doing here? Helios said, looking after the people is part of the imperial family's responsibilities. But I went through all the trouble of disguising myself as a commoner with magic, so calling me that is a bit problematic. Just call me Leo. Sernia said, I see. I'm busy, so I'll leave first. Helios said, can I come with you? Sernia said, I'm guessing you won't be interested in shopping for women's accessories. Well then, enjoy looking around. By now, there's no way he can keep up, right? Helios said, pfft, her dog barked woof. 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 Helios said, for some reason, since you were trying to run away, I felt like I wanted to catch you. I'm sorry if I made things hard for you. Sernia thinks things that he likes are interesting and amazing things, and the one who dislikes him. I wonder if it's because he grew up in the palace, surrounded by people who flatter him. He showed interest in the person who doesn't like him, and now I think I may have dealt with it poorly. Since I'm just an extra who only appears in the side stories, I never imagined I'd have anything to do with the crown prince. Helios said, "Are you ignoring me now?" Sernia said, I don't understand why Sir Leo is here, so I'm thinking about that briefly. Helios said, "Using Sir makes it clear I'm not a commoner." Lady Sernia really has no sense of adaptability. Sernia thinks, calm down. Getting mad won't do anything, it'll just entertain him. Helios said, then, who's the gift for? Sernia said, a friend. The twins are sticking to you day and night, but you have made friends. Helios said, I apologize if I made you feel sour. Sernia said, thank you. Helios said, you don't really look thankful. Sernia said, I'm telling the truth. If you didn't catch me, both Bam and I would have gotten hurt. Helios said, thank you very much. So, Lady Sernia is really honest. That's why it's more interesting. There's a stall over here. Helios checked something and said, what do you think of this? For something sold by a street vendor, it has really nice gems embedded in it. Sernia said, unfortunately, this isn't the color I'm looking for. I'm looking for red or orange. But if it's your friend, she's probably a noble young lady. Sernia wondered if it was all right to buy something from a street vendor like this. Because it was a gift from her, she was sure Canarine would be happy. Helios said he was jealous that she had a friend like that, and Sernia asked if he also had a friend like that. Helios admitted he thought Ren was his friend, but he wasn't sure if Ren felt the same way. Sernia recalled how, in the original story, Gwendwyn had genuinely thought of Helios as a friend and gave up on Daisy, but in reality, Helios could not receive Gwendwyn's true emotions, and even if they cherished each other, their feelings would not naturally reach one another. She encouraged Helios to ask directly, saying that nothing gets through if you don't speak, and urged him to gather courage because perhaps the other person felt the same way. Helios called her weird, and Sernia laughed, while he told her to call him Leo. He found something tucked away in a corner that he had been searching for and thanked her, joking that she now owed him a favor. Sernia reminded him that since she had saved him, he owed her now, and she felt uneasy, thinking the situation was just like with Sirius. Chelsea appeared, scolding Sernia for going out alone when there was barely time to prepare for the founding ceremony, and Sernia apologized and quickly said she would get ready. Chelsea asked about the dress color and assured her it would look perfect, and Ariel confirmed it. Sernia thought about the gift she prepared for Lady Canarine and whether anyone would notice that Sirius clothing was inside. Ariel reminded her that the first dance was with him, and Sernia acknowledged that and prepared to head in. The announcement came that the Duke of Ardentine and Lady Ariel were entering. Introductions were made, and Sernia thought about how she was considered the hidden jewel of the ducal house, even though she felt like a nobody. Helios approached and requested the first dance, despite Ariel claiming his right. Bella asked for the next dance, and Sernia wondered why everyone was deciding her dances. The Emperor, Empress, and Crown Prince entered, and Sernia noticed that the Empress stayed out of the spotlight, perhaps the hidden mastermind. Helios greeted her and asked for the first dance, saying it was an easy request if she was grateful. Sernia felt uneasy and accepted, and Helios teased her about being a terrible dancer, prompting her to refuse future dance requests. Helios clenched her hand and kissed it, making Sernia internally scream as she realized he was doing it on purpose. Sernia murmured, so, as Bella shouted at Prince Helios, accusing him of always doing whatever he wanted and unfairly cutting into the order of dances. Ariel agreed, reminding him that she had made that promise a whole month ago. Helios laughed and asked since when the two had become so close, to which Sernia insisted she wasn't close with His Highness and wondered in what way they even looked close, thinking he was just teasing her one-sidedly. Helios pressed again, asking who she was closer to between him and Prince Helios, and she chose Lord Gwendwyn, which made Helios exclaim that he had known it, noting that someone who understood Bella's cuteness like her would have chosen him. Sernia thought again about why Kana looked so young despite being older, considering her knowledge of a curse that demanded life as payment and guessing it might be because Kana was a mage herself. Kana turned away first, making Sernia wonder if she had really just looked at her by chance and questioned what she was saying and if she wanted her to come to the terrace. Sernia decided she would be right back, while Ariel offered to come along, but Sernia said it was fine and instructed Chelsea to bring the gift box she had left. On the terrace, Sernia commented that Kana's outfit was too thin for the cold, and Kana explained that she had forgotten to bring a shawl but was worried about her reputation in high society and wanted to prevent bad rumors, so she had called Sernia there. Sernia reassured her that reputation didn't matter and presented the gift she had prepared, and Kana asked if she had made it herself. Sernia admitted that she had, but the cookies had broken and promised to bake more next time. Kana said it was okay and loved it just as it was, finding homemade cookies too precious to eat, and Sernia promised to bake more for her next time. Sernia then revealed another gift, which Kana found beautiful but felt too much to accept. Sernia explained that it wasn't expensive, but she wanted to give Kana something she had personally chosen with her saved money. Kana excitedly asked if she could put it on immediately, and Sernia gently said she would do it for her to avoid smudging her makeup, commenting that it looked great and so pretty on her. Kana thanked her and noticed something else at that hour, which Sernia recognized as a letter, thinking about who could have sent it and realizing there was only one person who would. The letter simply said she would be waiting at the pond, which made Sernia recall the pond where she had fallen before, and Sirius added that he had been waiting for her, Lady Sernia. Sernia endured each day, waiting for the moment she could meet Sirius, and when she finally saw him, she greeted him, saying it was good to see him too, Your Highness. She noticed he had left something behind during his last visit, and Sirius explained it was his coat, saying she didn't need to return it, and she also asked about the cookies she had brought, explaining that she had made some for him while making a batch for a friend, with a heart shape for her friend and a star shape for him. Sirius said he wasn't eating them because he planned to cast a preservation spell and might need a new display case, but Sernia insisted she would bake more next time so he could eat them. After returning his coat, she prepared to leave, prompting Sirius to ask if he had done something wrong, and she explained that they weren't in a relationship where small talk was necessary. Sirius admitted that even if she meant nothing to him, she was special, asking her to look at him, while Sernia wondered if he was avoiding her because of her curse. Sirius asked if she was afraid of him now and pleaded for her not to back away, and she was struck by his eye color. He confessed he didn't know how much longer he could hold back, explaining that meeting her had been special and that her presence had brought color to his black and white world. Sernia recalled that when Sirius felt emotions and his curse broke, his hair and eye color would change, realizing this wasn't an act and that she had been the first to approach him without disdain, like a baby duck imprinting on the first thing it sees. Sirius revealed the nature of his curse, explaining that he was cursed to feel no emotions, no joy, hatred, love, or sorrow, and Sernia wondered why he was telling her this, noting that he was supposed to confess to Daisy and that, even outside the original story, there was no reason for him to be drawn to her. She remembered that in the novel, the reason he was drawn to Daisy was because of the spirits that gathered around her, and she reflected on what it would mean if she had the power of spirits as well. Sernia listened as Sirius explained that his emotions would have manifested before he came of age, and she asked why he was telling her this, recalling the day she had saved him. Sirius admitted that he had no interest in his own life or anyone else's, yet he had saved her, feeling drawn to her even if it was just an imprinting mistake, and the writer noted that the original story had already changed. So Sirius's feelings could very well change too. Sirius declared that there was only one thing Sernia needed to know. He had already imprinted on her, making Sernia realize it sounded like a love confession. Despite having told him not to touch her, he did as he wished, and she reflected that he liked her, yet she felt like she was being dragged around. She acknowledged that he was ridiculously handsome and her type, but reminded him that she never gave permission to be touched, and insisted that people were not objects to possess and that feelings could not be forced onto others. She encouraged him to value himself and all life, even the smallest creatures, and Sirius promised to try, while Cernia acknowledged she had to go because her cousins would worry. Cernia bade farewell to Ariel and Ariel, wishing them a safe trip, while Ariel reminded her that the carriage waiting area was just past the forest and mentioned that the freshman representative was His Highness,